political legend passes away. What does the hole that she leaves mean for the future of American politics? Howdy y'all, and welcome to the Wright Brothers. I am Trey Felder. Let's get right down into it. Unless you've been living under the most ginormous rock in the history of mankind, you probably know by now that former Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg recently passed away due to complications from pancreatic cancer, and through the already highly charged atmosphere of politics going into the 2020 presidential election into complete bedlam. And let's actually stop right there. That, in a nutshell, is a problem with the entire approach to the way that her death has been covered and the way that many people have chosen to go about remembering her. The woman's body had barely cooled when already both sides of the aisle were already jumping in with both feet to fan the flames of partisanship over whether the seat should be filled or should not be filled. But before we get into the speculation on one side of the aisle or the other, let's stop and take a beat to remember that we're talking about someone who passed away, someone who, whether you agreed with their politics or not, we here at the Wright Brothers did not, obviously, but at the same time, we are still talking about someone who had a profound impact, led an incredible life, and deserves to be memorialized for more than just a seat that she vacated. She was obviously the second female to ever serve on the United States Supreme Court, the first being Sandra Day O'Connor, was nominated by Bill Clinton, served for 27 years. Ruth Bader Ginsburg served for the majority of my adult life. I'm only 32 years old. She served from 1993, so I was 5 years old. She was one of the justices that I remember learning as being a justice at the time. Like there was no before Ruth Bader Ginsburg for me as far as my memory goes. So for a lot of people, especially my peers, it was a watershed moment. It's a huge deal that she passed away, and it's important that we remember her for more than just what her death in 2020 means to the future of American politics. So we have to stop and remember this was someone's daughter, this was someone's mother, this was a very important figure to a lot of people for a host of different reasons. So even in our speculation, let's try not to lose sight of the fact that we are talking about an actual human being here. And that kind of leads me to my next point. We all know that the United States government is a system of checks and balances. We hear that phrase thrown around all the time. One of the biggest checks is the United States Supreme Court, the judiciary, and as we all know, those are lifetime appointments. Now, justices can choose to retire early or step down. You don't have to stay in your seat until you pass away. Ruth Bader Ginsburg had the option to retire under Obama, did not choose to do so. But the kind of downside to a lifetime appointment is it creates a little bit of a macabre death watch that I frankly am not comfortable with. As we all know, Justice Ginsburg's health was not the best towards the end of her life. There was metaphorical vultures circling on both sides of the aisle, kind of waiting to see if she would pass away or not, if she would make it to the 2020 election or not. People either chomping at the bit to fill her seat if she did, or fretting that she would and that seat would be vacated. Either way, it's important to remember that just because the system is set up that way does not mean that we have to play into it with our rhetoric. And I've seen it on both sides of the aisle. Nobody is clean here. It's something that I have voiced before as being extremely uncomfortable with, and it's something that I will continue to voice as we go forward. It's that we don't have a perfect government. I think that having this kind of like death watch when it comes to the Supreme Court is pretty macabre. And I think it's also indicative of the fact that we are living in such partisan times. We shouldn't really know which political side of the aisle the Supreme Court justices land on. We shouldn't, for example, know that President Trump will almost 100% nominate someone who has a conservative track record. We shouldn't know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if the tables were turned, the Democrats would nominate someone with a highly liberal, progressive track record. It shouldn't be that way. We should be looking for strict constitutionalists who are going to uphold the letter of the law and govern, levy decisions even-handedly. And right now, maybe it's just a symptom of the hyper-partisanship of American politics across the board, but we see that latest iteration of it in the highly contentious filling of Supreme Court seats. And this would be the third justice that President Trump has had a chance to nominate. We can see with every single one that he's put in there, or that he's even nominated, the other side of the aisle has screeched bloody murder. And to their credit, that's what they were elected to do. And that kind of leads me to my next point. There are a lot of people who, bottom line, you can find enough evidence out there from rhetoric from 2016 to now to paint either party, any major politician, in a bad light based on whether they want to fill the seat in 2020 or leave it vacated in 2020. As we all know, Merrick Garland was nominated by President Obama in 2016, and that fell through because the Republicans had the majority in the Senate at the time, and because Barack Obama was a little bit of a lame duck president. He wasn't coming back he wasn't an incumbent president. He wasn't coming back for a second term. So that the situations were not exactly congruent. But if you just look at the rhetoric and look at what was said in a vacuum, it looks pretty bad for the Republicans to flip from one side to the other. Same thing for the Democrats to flip from one side to the other. The important thing here to remember is whether you agree with filling the seat or not, trying to butt it up against, oh, you did this in 2016, why are you saying this now, or vice versa, it's not going to change anyone's mind. And here's why. When we elect politicians, we elect them to do a specific job. We elect them primarily to advance the cause of the party platform that they were elected under. Now, part of that is, and probably the most vital part of that will have the most long-lasting consequences, does come with the influence on the judiciary. So when any opportunity like this arises, each side of the aisle is immediately going to leap to whichever position is going to best benefit that party. So I want everyone to remember remember that principle when it comes to what's coming out of any politician's mouth from henceforth regarding the Supreme Court, regarding filling the Supreme Court seat or not. It's not necessarily about hypocrisy. It's not necessarily about consistency. It's about what in this moment right now, benefits Democrats in 2020 and what benefits Republicans in 2020. And we can make arguments pro and against. I tend to lean more towards we should fill the seat as soon as possible. And we all know that the Republicans stand a much better chance of getting their nominee confirmed than Merrick Garland did under Obama in 2016 for differing circumstances. But like I said, at the end of the day, trying to sit here and split hairs over what was done in 2016 versus what is done now, it's something that is going to convince anyone one way or the other. Because like I said, it was hyper partisan in 2016. It's only gotten more so with each confirmation that's happened since then, and it's probably not going to stop anytime soon. So like I said, this is going to be something that people will be talking about for a long time. I think as of now, up until maybe 2016, you could say there was a precedent for not confirming justices during an election year. That sentiment is pretty well and buried at this point. I think just because of political expediency on both sides of the aisle, neither side is willing to leave a seat vacant, especially when there's such a dang near 50-50 divide among the constituency. The Supreme Court could potentially play a part in selecting a president if the race comes down to a draw, and if you are left with 8 justices and you have 4 who are left leaning, 4 who are right, and you end up having a logjam there as well. It would be irresponsible to leave the seat vacated. But like I said, you can make arguments either way until the cows come home. At the end of the day, the most appropriate response to the entire situation, I think, actually came from President Donald Trump. We all saw the video after a rally. He was not aware of the news that Justice Ginsburg had passed away. A reporter told him about it and asked him to react to it. He took a step back. It wasn't anything gleeful or gloating. even though you had to know he had his short list already ready to go at that point. He took a step back, took stock, and gave a poignant and heartfelt mini eulogy of Justice Ginsburg that was absolutely apropos in the moment. And then, once that was all said and done, he set about the business of what he was elected to do, what his base elected him to do, what we on the right elected him to do, and that was work on your short list to fill that seat. We all know the likely nominee is probably going to be Amy Coney Barrett. She was actually on the short list when Justice Kavanaugh was nominated. There's a little bit of optics going on there as well, a little bit of identity politics, which, as you know, on this channel we are extremely averse to. But the bottom line is, if the Republicans nominate someone other than a woman to fill Justice Ginsburg's seat, it's going to be a sword of Damocles that's the other side of the aisle is just going to hold over their head and pound them with anyway. It's already begun. The undermining of any potential nominees that President Trump may have. So we'll have to see. I'm not sure if Barrett will be tabbed by the time this video goes live or not, or if it'll be someone else that it maybe is not on our radar at this point. But that's something to watch for, especially if the nominee does end up being a female. We'll see if that was done more for optics or more for merit. I would hope, and we would all hope, that it is based on merit. I believe if it is Barrett, then merit would absolutely be justified. But like I said, we'll have to see. And it is 2020, so anything can happen, as we all know. So what are y'all's thoughts? We would love to hear from you, whether you make an argument for or against filling Justice Ginsburg's seat before the 2020 election, which is, oh gosh, less than 50 days away. We are closing in on less than 40 days away from the election as of this recording. What would you do in this situation as a Democrat or a Republican? And as always, let's keep the sanctity of life first and foremost in our minds, keep a grieving family in our minds, and remember that no matter what we thought of Justice Ginsburg's politics, what she did as a feminist and as a champion for women's rights, and as a justice on the Supreme Court, again, second woman ever on the Supreme Court, what she did in that capacity is not something that will be erased from American history anytime soon. So thanks to you all for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow Damani on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. You can follow us on Facebook at the Wright Brothers IPID. I run that page. You get a little bit of a different spin on things. I'm not going to spam your timeline. Don't worry. We just like to do a little bit more personal things sometimes than just the YouTube channel. So reach out to us. We're also both on Twitter at the Damani Felder for Damani, and at tbirdtrey_10 for me. That's tbirdtrey with a 3, not an E. Very, very tricky, as you all know. But anyway, thanks for all your support. We love doing this for you guys, and we will see you when we see you.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.